السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته أبو محمد.
Sister Pathy.
Yes,
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's okay with you to record the program on YouTube?
It's not my preference, but it's happening, so inshallah.
Inshallah. We start already. Brother Abdul Majid, go ahead.
All right. نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد. Time right now is 7:30 and this halqa will end. It's a 1-hour session. It will end up right at 8:30 tonight. And also for reference, so for tomorrow, the time will change from 7:30 to 7 p.m. tomorrow. So please make a note of that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today is Saturday, the 25th of Safar, 1443. And this is 2nd of October, 2021. With the permission of all Shayuks, my respected brothers and sisters, welcome to our Halaqah. I have the honor and privilege to introduce today's Halaqah number 558. Our honored speaker tonight is Sister Patricia Anton. She's a chaplain. MashaAllah, I think, welcome to the Halaqah itself. And may Allah bless you, your parents, for your contribution to this Halaqah. Then we have Imam Fawad Al-Qassas reciting tonight in the Quran session of number 65, initiated by my Imam Muhammad Shibli. He'll be doing Surah Al-Imran, ayah number 33 onwards. So, and he's appearing, Imam Fawad Al-Qassas, for 238th time tonight. Jazakallah khair, Imam Fawad Al-Qassas, for your contribution to this Halaqah. So may Allah bless you and your parents. Then we have my Imam doing the translation, tafsir, and the summary of the ayah recited tonight. So he's doing for 288th time tonight. May Allah bless you, my Imam, for your service to the Halaqah. With the busy schedule that you are already with your Islamic Society of Central Jersey, you still come and bless us with your observation that you do so beautifully. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you and everybody in the Halaqah. May Allah bless you and your parents for that. As regard the timeline goes, we have a 15 and 30 and 50-minute time slot. And the very 15-minute time slot is recitation and translation of the Holy Quran. And the 30-minute time slot is dedicated tonight to Chaplain Patty. So, and then the last one is the 15-minute time slot, is the question and answer. And then we have Dua Floya for the 15-minute time slot. So may Allah bless everybody and thank you for coming to the Halaqah itself. The floor belongs to Imam Muhammad, please.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Abdul Majid. Jazakallah khair, thank you. Sheikh Fuad, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Mawlana.
تفضل يا أخي.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم تر إلى الذين أوتوا نصيبا من الكتاب يدعون إلى كتاب الله ليحكم بينهم ثم يتولى فريق منهم وهم معرضون ذلك بأنهم قالوا لن تمسنا النار إلا أياما معدودات وغرهم في دينهم ما كانوا يفترون فكيف إذا جمعناهم ليوم لا ريب فيه ووفيت كل نفس ما كسبت ووفيت كل نفس ما كسبت وهم لا يظلمون. قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير. تولج الليل في النهار وتولج النهار في الليل وتخرج الحي من الميت وتخرج الميت من الحي وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب. لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين ومن يفعل ذلك فليس من الله في شيء إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقاه ويحذركم الله نفسه وإلى الله المصير. قل إن تخفوا ما في صدوركم أو تبدوه يعلمه الله ويعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض والله على كل شيء قدير. يوم تجد كل نفس ما عملت من خير محضرا وما عملت من سوء تود لو أن بينها وبينه أمدا بعيدا ويحذركم الله نفسه والله رؤوف بالعباد. قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم والله غفور رحيم. قل أطيعوا الله والرسول فإن تولوا فإن الله لا يحب الكافرين. صدق الله العظيم.
الله يفتح عليك شيخ فؤاد.
كرمكم الله.
يبارك لك ويرحم والدينا ووالديكم إن شاء الله.
آمين يا رب.
شيخ حمد تفضل يا أخي.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على هديه إلى يوم الدين
صلى الله عليه
وأشهد
وسلم.
أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. My dear respected Imams, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, our beloved nephew Ahmad allowed me to greet all of you with the Islamic greeting and the meaning of this greeting to our viewer locally, nationally, internationally, to say peace and the blessing of Allah be upon you all. And when we initiate this greeting in Arabic, we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Every time I heard Fadilat Sheikh Imam Fuad al-Qassas Jazahullah Khair reciting the Quran Kareem, since first day he arrived to New Jersey, if you remember that, I visited him in his house. And nowadays, every day, mashallah, 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 locally, nationally, internationally, became very well known. And especially in this halaqah, when he put the most beloved picture after the picture of mom and dad, and some of you as my brother and sister, the most beloved picture to my heart is the Kaaba and the tower of the Kaaba and Makkah al-Mukarramah, and that is beloved, very beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My love is increased and increased and increased to the Islam, to the Quran, and to all of you, inshallah ta'ala. What he recite tonight from verse 23 to verse 32. If you remember, because I have my note here, if you remember, I said, subhanallah, that verses started with verse 23 and end by verse 32, which means 3, 2, 2, 3. Subhanallah. But tonight I like to take only the last two verses, if he allowed me, inshallah ta'ala. The last two verses of this recitation, because we already covered it once, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us invitation. And imagine if somebody invite you for a wedding or halaqah or walima or azima or marriage or any kind of halal invitation. If you don't respond to that invitation, is that the person is going to be happy with you? And the answer is no. And I will release something. I mean, don't get upset of it. I received an invitation from my very, very dear Muslim brother to have, quote unquote, a birthday to his grandson. Believe me, I said, no, I'm not coming. And he asked me, why? Is halal? I said, listen, I have, alhamdulillah, many grandkids. I never attend any birthday of any one of them. Which means some of the invitation you accepted, some of the invitation you don't accept it. What the invitation comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us in the last two verses of the recitation of tonight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I quote, Qul, say, in kuntum, if you were, tuhibbun Allah, you desire, you have your reward, you proclaim, you are very dear to Allah, you love Allah more than anything else? The answer is yes. Who is in this halaqah will say, I love my Imam more than the Prophet? You cannot say that. You have to love the Prophet more than anybody else. Who is in this halaqah can say, I love the Prophet more than Allah? No, you cannot say that. We have to say, I love Allah first. I love Prophet Muhammad after that. Because the love of Allah is different from the love of Prophet as a human being. I love my mom, I love my dad, I love my spouse, I love my kids. I love you have to put this love in darajat, which means level after level after level. The highest level is to say, I love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, none of us will reach that level to proclaim you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala conditionally till you follow the footsteps of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We have to read the Sunnah. We have to read Sahih al-Bukhari. We have to read Sahih Muslim. We have to read As-Sirah al-Nabawiyah. We have to read the detail, small detail about daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, 63 years old of Rasulullah sallam. Then we follow those steps one by one, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِ. Follow me as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as he said, يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهِ. In that condition, Allah will love you, inshallah ta'ala. Let me close with this. If a person does not believe in the Sunnah of Rasulullah, God forbid, we have many of them in the media. If the person does not perform the 2 rak'ah Sunnah before Salatul Fajr, 6 rak'ah Sunnah for Salatul Zuhr, 0, 2 or 4 Sunnah before Salatul Asr, 2 rak'ah of Salatul Maghrib, 2 rak'ah of Salat al-Isha, and 3 rak'ah of Salat al-Witr, and Salat al-Janazah, and Salat al-Khawf, and Salat al-Musafir. This are the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and said, no, I will follow only the Quran and Allah will love me according to this verse. You are out of the box. I am using the terminology of my brother Mubin. Forgive me for that. You are out of the box. You like to be in the box Islamically? قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِ يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهِ. The minute Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you by following the Sunnah of Rasulullah, don't worry about the love of the others beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The when you arrive to that level, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. That is the main goal. My jalabiya is not clean. I have to wash it. I have to send to dry cleaner. I have to pay money for it. It will become clean. In the end of the day, before somebody put us inside the box, I mean the casket, and offer 4 takbirat on us, we have to say, Ya Allah, I heard the invitation. I love you. I follow the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallam. Please forgive my sin as you promised me. وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah is the most forgiving, the most merciful, not only for us, but for all the creation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us another order after the invitation. قُلْ أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولِ. You obey Allah, no questions. You obey the Prophet Muhammad sallam, no questions. But the rest of the people, if they run away from us, it's not our business. فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْكَافِرِينَ. The one who run away from this da'wah, run away from Islam, run away from obeying Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never have the love the one who cover the truth with the false. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. أَقُولُ قَوْلِ هَذَا وَأَسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لِي وَلَكُمْ فَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ يَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ. وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى وَبَرَكَاتُهُ.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خير شيخ حمد ورحم الله والديكم. Sister Hala.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to have Sister Patty here. Sorry, I'm away from my home.
We like to know from where this kind of beautiful music is coming.
I
Somebody can
think
take
you're
care
still
about
on your
it.
phone.
Oh,
You can check your phone. Now you have to unmute.
now I'm mute. I'm
You're
sorry.
on mute.
I'm at one of my friend's house. They're getting a get together, but I cannot stay away from the halaqah. So I asked for a private room to stay here because I could not wait to hear Chaplain Patty to join us. We're very happy to have you. And we look forward for you to come and join us again. Wallahi, we really enjoy your talks and presentation. Please, اتفضلي.
جزاك خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. You honor me by sharing this space with me and letting me be here. And, you know, always you start with this incredible, beautiful recitation, and it is so humbling. And I think I said this last time, but I just want to keep listening to the recitation and really not add my voice to it. But again, since you've asked me, and inshallah, I will oblige, and I hope you will forgive me. And thank you also, Imam, for the beautiful commentary. May Allah, you know, really make us of those who follow the Prophet inwardly and outwardly in the best way. Ameen. So the conversation that I thought that I'd want to have with you, and I do like to have it be a conversation more. I'm not a scholar that I want to give lectures and things. I do like to have a bit of a conversation. It's really pulling from something that I had with a group of grad students earlier this week. And they asked me really to talk about this idea of balance, right? So right now everybody's talking about and thinks about life balance, right? You know, within the university, we have, you know, I'm at Penn, people are very driven and they work very hard and their schedules are very tight. And so we have this thing called Penn Wellness, right? And they have this nice wheel of wellness. And so within that, you know, they're reminded that, okay, yes, you need to have your work and you need to have your career, but you also need to have family. You also need to have your finances. You need to have your spirituality and all of these different aspects and things. And it keeps coming up. And essentially, we all know that our lives, our society, our culture is somehow out of balance. And when I've been thinking about, even when I think about this COVID pandemic and all the things that are connected to it, you know, I thought to what was happening before that happened to us and the ways that people were saying we're out of balance in this way and we're out of balance in that way and all of these things. But yet they were also saying that we didn't have the collective willpower to change. We can't change. That's the way things are. You know, this is the culture, this is the society. We you know, there was a lot of other people feeling that that things that need to be changed and that are not sustainable cannot be changed. And then Allah sends something, and then all of a sudden, you know, in a time that we never imagined, our entire lives changed in ways we had just literally never considered in such a short period of time. And this is something that I really believe is you know, an ayah for us, right? That Allah is also showing us, among so many things, you know, and some very difficult things as well, that we do have that capacity to change, and we have the capacity to do things differently. But one of the things that I've noticed is you know, there's a lot of science and things that are out there about wellness now, right? So we know that eating well, we know that, you know, all these different kinds of self-care things, right? And what I notice is that when I discuss this, sometimes if you bring it up to people, right, you notice that the cortisol level shoots up, right? Because what's happening? people are seeing like, I have all these things to do on my list, and now I have to add, you know, being mindful. Now I have to add the spirituality. Now I have to add going to the gym. Now I have to add, you know, and it becomes another thing on the to-do list, and it becomes more stress, right? And so one of the things that, and I know for a lot of people, the Islam is this way too. You know, we know that the Quran is telling us that verily in the remembrance of Allah, the hearts find tranquility. This is where our hearts are going to find rest, right? But somehow, you know, when we mention this, people are feeling guilty, right? That they haven't done more, that they haven't found more time to pray all those sunnah prayers, that they haven't found more time to memorize more Quran, right? And then they feel bad, right? And that guilty feeling doesn't really empower them and make them stronger, right? And it doesn't give them that tranquility to give them what they're supposed to get, right? Which is that in the remembrance of God, our hearts are going to find this tranquility and this kind of connection. And one of the things that I was sort of reflecting on is that part of it is that we're dealing with it still as part of our to-do list, right? And instead of dealing it with it as Islam, right? As he said in the beginning, Assalamu alaikum, right? What does this mean? You know, and sometimes we forget. We know this is the obligation that I'm Muslim, you're Muslim, Assalamu alaikum. We know this, we say this. We know this is a greeting, right? But how much are we connecting to that meeting? That when I'm seeing you, that God and the Sunnah of our Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has made it an obligation that I pray for your wellness, right? That among Muslims, we pray for our salam. And people who know Arabic, right? We know salam also means, you know, salamtik. It means to your health, to your well-being, right? The name salam, as-salam, to be without harm, to be without defect, to be without fault, right? So what are we saying in this sense? I see a hand up. Somebody.
Sister Kathy, you have your hand raised.
It's taken care of.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I just didn't know if there was something. Okay, so we know that we're obliged to say Salaam alaikum, right? We want to be able to find this kind of taslim in our hearts, right? This tranquility within our hearts, right? But we spend so much time, right, in our secular systems that sometimes we're operating on, I would say, what is like a secular operating system. And then, like, you know, in the secular world, I'm in the university and they have this nice, you know, wheel, right? They have a secular paradigm. And our Islam fits in that as identity. Muslims, okay, you're a Muslim, all right, you need a place to pray, you need a room for a meeting, you need to break fast at a certain time. Okay, we arrange these kind of technical external things for you so that you can do your aspect of your identity and these aspects, right? And then for the other groups, the other things, right? And it becomes part of this external things that are done, right? But for those of us that are trying to do that, to really follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Islam isn't the external identity. It's not the to-do list. It's not the performative part of it. It starts with the internal part of it. The Islam is the operating system, right? It's that filter through which we're trying to do everything else. Okay, so I want to kind of talk about this a little bit more. And I want us to think about the conception of the human being also within the Muslim tradition, right? So we know that we have, well, we've already talked about like wellness in terms of eating and exercise, right? So we know we have a body, right? And we know about this body from the Quran, right? We know that it's made from the earth, right? We know that there's certain things that we nourish it with, there's certain things that we don't nourish it with, right? And we also know that it was given to us, it has a purpose, right? And its purpose is really, the metaphor of Imam Ghazali is like it's our vehicle, right? So this body is meant to pull us through this world so that we can fulfill our obligations, right? So we can see the signs of Allah, right? That we can uniquely as human beings do reflect on these signs, right? And be witness to these signs. And that we have these obligations that we have for God and these obligations that God has given us among one another. In order to do that, we have to, to maximize that, we need to maximize our physical health as well, right? And so that becomes part of our balance, right? But the difference is in the intentionality of it, right? What is that intention? Right now, for instance, we have Instagram and we have a huge problem with body dysmorphia, right? People having very skewed images of how they perceive themselves, skewed images of what they think beauty is, right? And it's affecting all their mental health, right? And then the mental health is affecting the physical health as well because they're connected. But instead of seeing that this body is something that was given to us, right? That Allah has made it to reflect, something beautiful in creation, and to honor that, right? As a gift to be in service, right? And if our intention in trying to do these things is giving it back to God, that transforms things, right? And we know that we have the ruh, right? That this spirit that is blown into the human being that is very, special, right? And what is this ruh that needs to be, in balance? This is the part that needs that connection to Allah, right? It's the dhikr of Allah that is the food for the ruh, right? The word salah itself meaning connection, right? So it's that giving us that connection, right? And if we don't have that, then we are having an imbalance, right? Now, the next part of the stuff that we're going to just kind of mention really quickly is the nafs, right? And you'll be familiar, I'm sure you've had other conversations that talk about just, there's the levels of the nafs, right? And this nafs can be the ego, this nafs can be the soul, the personality, right? It's what houses sometimes our desires, right? It houses some kinds of our egos and things like that, but it also is where we have that individual expression, right? So we want the nafs to be in a good way, right? Ideally what we want is the nafs is to be reflecting and to be serving, right? In line with the soul. And we have the heart, right? And the heart is, for Muslims, this is the seat of knowledge, right? And in the thinking of Imam Ghazali, he talks about the heart as king, right? It's the heart that is being informed by the other faculties, right? It's the heart that stands witness to the ayat of Allah, right? It's the hearts that contemplate and reflect, right? The verb akala that is in the Quran, right? We want to put it into the Greek thing and say this is up here, but in the Quran, it's the heart that does the akling, right? I say akling, right? But it's the heart that thinks and contemplates and gets to know, these signs of Allah, right? And so when we're dealing in the secular environment, right? You're essentially dealing with only two of these aspects, right? Like if I'm talking with the med students, right? They deal with the body, right? We talk about that. And they talk about the nafs, right? Because most of what we talk about in terms of secular psychology is really part of the nafs, right? How does the nafs function and talk to itself and things like that, right? But it doesn't give the recognition either of the ruh, right? That spiritual, that breath that comes from Allah, right? And it doesn't give the intention to the heart, right? It talks about the heart as if it's a muscle, right? It's just part of the body, right? And with what we know from Quran, we can ask more questions, and we have more room to research and to discover more knowledge, inshallah. And so then what does this mean in this space? It means that if we are processing on a secular paradigm, because we spend all our time there and we're practicing, right? And we're trained and we are, well trained. I mean, that's where people skip most of their input and time, right? Is in the secular education. That means that there's a bias towards the nafs, right? In all its complexities and all the ways that it can manifest and the body, right? But neglecting these other aspects, right? And so in this, it's very easy for your worship to become part of that performative part, right? It becomes another thing that you need to do in order to be a good person. You have to recite this much Quran, so it becomes a matter of prestige. Prestige is about the ego, right? You have to check off this list because this is the identity of a good Muslim, right? But that's not its purpose. I mean, it's still good to have goals and performative goals, right? But to realize that their purpose is, again, to give you that tranquility in the heart. Right? And so the more important question then is, okay, how do we create that balance? How do we be present in the heart instead of checking off the list? How do we talk about that as khushu, right? That being present, right? How do we properly execute our nafs, right? In ways that are good, give the nafs good expression and healthy expression, right? Ways that, unlimited ways that you can glorify God, right? The sunnah is also wasiya. There's a lot of flexibility in ways that people can creatively reflect their own unique characteristics, the way that God shows up in their life, and to give thanks and praise in that way. And again, having this, I tell my students, it says, the feeding of the ruh and the ibadah, it doesn't have to be something separate, right? The beginning of your intention and the beginning of your balance is with your intentionality, right? And we've heard this before, that we know that the thing that is just, it's not, just the thing that seems like mundane, right? Someone's working in the lab and they're doing, research on chemicals, right? Well, if there's an intentionality on that, right? Your intentionality is to be part of finding healing, right? That maybe you can be one of those people that Allah says, whoever saves a single life, it's as if they saved all humanity. You have intentions like this becomes an act of worship, right? And it becomes a dhikr of Allah. And it becomes a witnessing of Allah, right? And that orientation of the heart where you're praising God, thanking God in the middle of doing everything else, that gives you the balance without taking extra time, without taking extra energy, right? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I'm probably going over time, inshallah. Is it time? Should we switch to questions? Inshallah. I see Abdul Majid has his hand up as well.
Itfadali, sister.
Yeah, I think it's time for anybody else question. I yield my time to somebody else, but I have a question too. So if somebody can ask questions, go ahead, do that, please.
Itfadal, Brother Abdul Majid.
My time then. We have Sister Kathy. I think, she was, I will yield my time to Sister Kathy. Kathy, you have any question for Chaplain Patty, please? Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question, but I have it for the Imam. It's about the Friday's prayer again.
When they come back, they're going to be, I think they're praying now, honey.
Okay. Okay, can I keep my hand up until they come back?
I mean, it looks like I think they are not coming back.
Okay.
Oh, hey, Imam Jamal is here, so I think you'll be.
Sorry, I cannot open my camera. I'm listening to the lecture, but go ahead, Sister Kathy.
Okay.
After the permission of Chaplain Patty.
Oh, Imam, please, you don't even.
Assalamu alaikum.
Go ahead. Wa alaikum salam.
My question is the same thing what I said yesterday. I had talked to somebody in Kansas City. She does Halaqah, and she told me when they do the Friday prayer, they do the call twice. Once to get ready, and once to do with the imam. When you hear the first call, is when you do, after you finish, you do the 2 rakats. Then you wait for the second call, and that's when you do the obligation with the imam.
She's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, I've been doing it right. I got nervous.
No, don't get nervous. Whatever you are doing, inshallah, Rabbil Alameen, right. If you don't know, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept it.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
inshallah.
Okay.
Sister Kathy, your time. Sister Patty.
Okay.
I'll just maybe mention just a few more reflections if you give me permission then. You know, in the verses, really those beautiful verses that you read at the beginning, you know, among it is this talking about the bringing the night from the day and the day from the night, right? And this is also part of the balance, right? That's here in creation, that everything in creation naturally follows an orbit that's in balance, right? And it's only us, our human beings like us, that decide whether do we follow an orbit of balance, whether we follow this Sirat al-Mustaqim, whether we follow the Sunnah, or whether we get off balance and take some other track, right? The earth obeys and it follows its orbit, right? And then we have these cycles of night and day. But these cycles of night and day also, and I'm thinking definitely of Surat al-Muzammil. If you're thinking of life balance, think of this surah, particularly the first, I think 11 ayat, where it really kind of talks about, you know, this is early revelation of the Prophet ﷺ, right? And it's telling him to stand at night, right? And it also tells him why he needs to be doing that, right? And it's telling him you're gonna have really long days and it's gonna be hard. You're gonna be struggling, the people are gonna be against you. You've got hard work ahead of you. You need to stand up at night. This is the balance. And for us as Muslims, right? You know, again, if we're in secular society, we get head-centered, then we're top-heavy and we get off balance. As Muslims, we want to be heart-centered. Right? And I've seen these beautiful diagrams that show the heart just like a, you know, like a tree, right? Because it has the arteries that run from it, right? And all these things, and there's the different veins and things. Well, the tree also, right? It has the branches that go up, but it has the roots that go down, right? You know that if you transplant a plant without its roots, right? It will most likely die. Some of them will quickly grow new roots, right? But it will never grow more than its roots, right? And so is realizing that we're like this too, right? So, and part of that is believing. That's part of the faith as well, right? That people obey and follow guidance to the extent that they believe in it, right? Do my students, there are studies that say that if the students get some sleep, they will do better on their exams, okay? How much do they believe in this study and they're like, okay, I'm gonna get a good night's sleep before my exam, versus how much do they feel like they have to cram it all in the night before, right? We're the same way. How much do we feel like we have to cram it all in? How much do we really believe that if we don't cram as much, but instead we balance, right? By making sure that we have our prayer, right? That we go inward as much as we go outward, right? And that we are making it more long-term sustainable in that way, right? So yeah, let's say the other thing I'll mention with this is just personality types, right? Because it's what people need to struggle to get balance is different based on who they are. Some people are very outgoing and they really need to be pulled back in, they need to force themselves to like take some alone time, take some quiet time. Some people, you know, like their quiet time, and they have to force themselves to follow the sunnah in accepting invitations, right? And, you know, sometimes you can take a teaching, you know, and it's really meant for the other personality type because it makes you be in your comfort zone. And your nuts wants to be in the comfort zone, right? But that might not be what you need to be, you know, kind of balanced. Any questions at this point?
Sister Patty, again, you know, it's a very high quality Ivy League school presentation, you know, because you are from UPenn and I have an experience with there. My only, just like a very simple and very humble question for that.
Mm-hmm.
If I might, I have two sons. I have just, you know, tried to just being, you know, my religious belief, you know, told them do like this.
Mm-hmm.
But as they used to go to the school, different school they went,
Mm-hmm.
but they end up excelling in the only academics itself, which is okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was also my part of the thing. I came for education here too. But accomplishing your academic thing, you know, how we can just tell a person going to college, just going, because, you know, getting into UPenn is very difficult too, right? Isn't it? It's an Ivy League school. So he said, I made it. Then he go for his MCAT. He gets a very good score in MCAT. So he go to medical school, right? Now, that's okay. But kindly just how advise, I'm a parent of those boys, how I can advise them before they go to UPenn, for example, but still they pray, still, and you know, I was very lucky because when there's a Muslim federation, they join that thing, and you know, they just go with them, they say namaz together and other stuff. Can you just give us I think easy answer to this can be, and I can give the answer to myself, it starts from home, right? And you know, we have to be you know, a role model for them, which I'm not, you know, I accept that. And you know, so can you just try to show some light, because you're in this field of, I have been Googling your, you know, your research thing, how you interfaith and other stuff that you do, and how you fit in our Muslim, you know, Muslim sons and daughters. I don't have any idea for the daughters, but I have idea for my son. I know that, but I think it's more harder for a daughter also, just going with this same situation that for the sons that I have that. Right? Can you just advise the parents who are in this place or in this situation itself? And we, at what time we emphasize have the American dream, and I tell myself too, have American dream. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, you know, but how we can pick it? That you're talking about today, balance also. So please forgive me again. This very long, you know, question about it, but I will just need your expertise to give the answer in that direction. So, Jazakallah khair.
No, Jazakallah khair, and thank you for the beautiful question. And you know, truly, like you know, places like this, your friends, your peers, you have to help one another in dealing with these things. We need to have cultures that really support and talk about how do we better support our youth in these ways, right? And a couple reflections that kind of come is, you know, of course, what you're saying in terms of modeling, right? And okay, we're all imperfect, right? And, you know, those of us, we get to a certain age, we realize we have experience. And so we like, it took me a long time to learn what I've learned, you know, and you want to pass it on to the young people so they don't make your same mistakes and they can pick up where you left off, right? You know, and so being honest with them about that. And to remember that one thing that, you know, when you're dealing with this age that's getting ready to go to college, right? There's a book called The Teenage Brain. I actually highly recommend it, right? That we understand the developmental stage that they are in, right? And the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, right, is that during this time you become their friend, right? So you have the time when they're little kids and you play with them, right? And then you've got the tarbiyah years, right? Where you really have to, like, this is where you have to show them the rules and you have to show these different kinds of, this is how you do this and this is how you don't do that, and our society, tries to extend the childhood, right? But if we're trying to get back to the sunnah, then at some point you have to give them the autonomy to say, yes, you can make your decisions, right? But I'm here to consult you and I'm here to talk with you. I'm here to share your experience, and let them feel that they have that ability to make their own, decisions. That makes a huge difference, right? One of the things, there's another book that is by one of our professors at Penn by the name of Angela Duckworth. It's called Grit, right? And she, again, it's a thing in psychology. It's like, how do people push through when they do all these things? And the secret, and if we really understand that she found in her research, is that if people's intention is to do it for prestige, they're going to burn out. But if someone has a vision from their heart of what they're doing, why they're doing it, then they can achieve excellence. Because a sincere heart can go through the mundane and it can go through the difficult times, right? But prestige is about the nafs. And the nafs, it wants all the feel good. It doesn't want the not feel good. And so it will burn out, right? And so part of what we need to model in our communities with our own children, but larger community, is we got to stop pushing this prestige stuff, right? We got to stop pushing the everybody become a doctor and everybody become this. And we've got to get away from this wanting to sometimes even brag with our friends. And this isn't about you, this is a general thing. But I think it's something that's there, right? And really just sit there and say, how do we become heart-centered? How do we realize that, okay, God has given me this child, but now I have to let this child go back to God, right? As we have these examples in the Quran, because God has given that child its own mission, right? And so how do you support them in finding their own mission, right? Inshallah. But again, saying, it should be sincere, right? And there's parameters in it and encouraging it. And, there's a thing too, when it comes to young people, I had horses. So they say, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So the strategy is to make sure the water is always there, right? And if they're really thirsty, you splash their muzzle, right? When they're really in need, you hold the bucket up for a little bit, but you can't make them drink. Well, let them know it's always there. I hope that's helpful.
You're on mute, Brother Abdul Majid.
I'm done. I think, it's a beautiful answer he gave. But let me update you. So in my case, maybe I was not a perfect Islamic guy, whatever you call that. But I'm achieving my things through my grandchildren now. They started doing the Hafiz and they become a doctor too. Here we go. Now, what I'm saying is, you are very correct. It should come from your heart. If your heart is pure and you have a good intention, and they will get it either today or tomorrow. They will catch up to you. So I think it's a beautiful answer that you gave, and Jazakallah khair. Keep up the good work that you've done.
Jazakallah, thank you so much. And of course, the dua for them is
that's right.
The most important thing as well.
We have Sister Hala, I think. Hala, go ahead.
Brother Aga is first. Brother Aga is first.
Okay, thank you very much, Sister Hala. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, I congratulate you guys. You are pursuing a lot of things by this discussion. I have one very simple question. Quran says about equality. As the lecture was how we can go in a balanced life in Islam, then it tells us everyone is born equal and will die equal. He will be judge every person on the basis of the merits and demerits and the deed. In the Quran, the chapter number 49, the verse 15, O mankind, we created you from a one male and female and made you in a nation and tribes that you may know one another. Can you tell us, because our system is so much powerful, one side we are pure Islamic culture, we have a pure Islamic culture, the other side we have American culture. So the thing is that a lot of problems, I think a lot of parents are, when they come in United States, they have a challenge in make a comparison of the American culture and Islamic culture. Can you give a better guidance, because you are very familiar in that field, you know? And can you give us just a few words about how we can manage these type of the conflict between the American culture and Islamic culture?
Yeah. MashaAllah, thank you so much for that. And I'm going to go back to what I was saying about kind of this idea of Islam as an operating system. That, you know, again, the secular university wants to deal with Islam as an ethnic identity. And this is something that is really increasing, right? But Islam is not an ethnic identity, right? Islam is a relationship between us and our creator and creation, right? And it's a relationship, it's a state of being that transcends all cultures. And you picked up the perfect ayah, because you said that you made you into nations and tribes so that you can know one another, right? And now there's a lot of talk about white supremacy, and this is part of the imbalance. It's a global imbalance. It's a global imbalance in the fact that in every continent in this world, people can tell you about the intellectual heritage tradition of Europe. They can tell you about its heroes. They can tell you about its contributions to civilization, right? And then we are all divided, the rest of humanity, given stereotypes about everyone else, right? And we've experienced Islamophobia, and that's part of it, right? But there's now discrimination against Asians, right? How do we look at the native people from this land? People from the continent of Africa, right? You know, so part of our Islamic, you know, coming back and getting balance through Islam is saying, I have my culture, right? But my culture isn't Islam. My culture is my culture. You know, I'm Pakistani, or I'm Arab, or, you know, I'm African American, you know, and I love my, you know, I love my biryani, I love my bean pie, I love my tabbouleh, whatever it is, that's your culture, right? I love the way that I dress, and I love my language. These are all parts of your culture, right? But that's not Islam. That's just the bedrock, right? What's his name? Dr. Omar Farouk Abdullah says it so beautifully. He talks about, he says, Islam is like pure water, right? It reflects the bedrock from wherever it is, right? And so we need to resist this, what's coming from the secular kind of thing that tries to say there's a dichotomy, right? There's a dichotomy between Islam and the West. There's a dichotomy between belief and unbelief, right? There's a dichotomy between East and West, but Islam is not of the East or the West, right? And so, you know, for me, I think, again, part of the balance is just not accepting these frameworks and coming back to Islam as our center. God is the God of humanity. The Quran that came is a message for humanity, linnas. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is rahma lil alameen, right? And so we have to not think of it as an opposition, right? But instead we filter, right? And wherever we see good in your culture, mashallah, right? But when we see other than that, whether it's in our own culture, whatever we may identify our own culture as, whether that's our family, whether that's our country of origin, whether that's the, you know, neighborhood we live in, right? There's something other than that, then we want to call to change. I'm sorry, I know there's other questions here. Yes.
Okay, thank you
Jazakallah,
very
I
much.
think,
Thank you very much.
we have only 2 minutes left for the time to
Just-
expire. So please,
Brother
Sister Hala. Yeah, go ahead, Imam Jamal, please.
I just-
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Go ahead.
barakatuh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Just to not to disagree with what Chaplain Pat said, but just to make it clear for Brother Agha, the problem with the Muslims in United States in general is not only the culture, because all of us feel we are minorities here.
Mm.
And whenever minorities, regardless of their cultures, feel their right are not there, or they are losing their right, they get together to protect themselves. And the only way they feel, the only way they think they can protect themselves instead of getting involved in the community and be part of the country culture they live in without conflict with their own culture, they try to group by themselves and to have a self-defense against anything to come in that. And to get the support, they look who have some type of similarities in their, not only in their culture, but also in a bigger idea, what is the religion. This is why you find the masajid, for example. You find this is Arabic masjid, this is Pakistani masjid, this is Afghani masjid, this is this African American masjid. But when we look at the big pictures, everybody say I am a Muslim. But the more we feel insecure, the more we grouping as a minorities. And this is what I believe the insecurities feeling in our heart in this community, based on maybe culture, based on religion, based on we are the minority, whatever it's happened, we are the minority. And don't forget what, since the 50s, Islam is considered as the enemy of the West. And this where everything is, I'm not talking as individuals, I'm talking as a government. Everything is going to work against Islam, even in the sense of teaching, even in the sense of promoting idea. I'm not talking about war. I'm not talking about promoting ideas. Even it's against Islam based on because of the we feel that we are the minority. And this is the key point I want to say. We are the minority, and this is what we have this feeling here.
Okay, thank you very much, Imam Jamal, for more clarification. Jazakallah khair.
Sister Patty,
Yes.
we need you to come next week because we have more questions. People are on this topic. You really opened up a very important topic that we all need. Is there a possibility, because we're running out of time, and we really would like to keep this lesson open. Check your schedule and let me know. We would really appreciate it. We're running out of time, so we've ran out of time. Would you please do the dua for us? So we, please, thank you.
Yeah, with this topic, I thought it would just be appropriate for us to just end with Surah Al-Asr. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Jazakallah khair, and thank you all again for having me.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Sister Patty. See you next time.